is, and we should be live in just a sec. Hello, everyone. We should be live now.
Hello.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you so much for coming to our ENG EXPO After Hours Q&A.
Now you get to meet more of the team if you're here at ENG EXPO or if you're an upper year who's applying to the team. So this is an awesome time to ask us your questions. We're also going to be answering some of the questions you put in the Google form when you signed up to join. You can type your questions in the YouTube chat if you want to ask us anything about R3 Robotics.
Hi.
Hello, lots of hellos. Welcome, everybody. Do any of you have questions for us? Otherwise, I'll jump in with some of the questions from the Google form.
Yeah, I was just pulling that up too now. I guess we can do... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say the first question I see in the Google form is, do I need a lot of experience and knowledge to join the teams? Or can I build up and learn during the time as part of the team?
Yeah, so I guess I can answer that question first. You definitely don't need experience to join the team. I joined the team 4 or 5 years ago, and I had zero experience coming in, and now like 4 or 5 years later, I'm the team captain. I've built up a huge amount of experience. I've learned a lot from my peers, from my mentors, from the time that I started, and now I try to just help everyone on the team however way I can, with as much stuff as they need as possible. It's just something we as a team take like huge importance in, is that we're always willing to help you learn and grow, and develop along with us. So even if you don't have any experience, by all means. I don't know if you guys want to add on with anything.
We have a really great onboarding process. So if you're applying to mechanical or hardware or software, we do a bit of training before you get thrown into the deep end so that you have the basic skills you need, that your projects aren't overwhelming, and you should have a good start off on the team.
So I was just going to say we can do like a quick intro of who everyone is here, just since some of you might have not seen all of us before. So really quickly, hi, I'm Daniel. I'm one of the 2 team captains for R3 for the upcoming year. I just help manage the whole team and make sure everything is going according to plan for all of the projects that we have running and anything else that we've got going on. And then these are some of my other execs that I work with on pretty much a daily basis.
So I'm the science team captain. I'm the project manager for the science team. 2 of my amazing leads are here today, Rifat and Leo. They'll explain their roles in a second. I am the big picture person, so I oversee 3 sub-teams. We have science mechanical, science controls, so that's like electrical, hardware, and software, and science life detection, which is science research. So we research protocols to analyze soil samples and rock samples to determine whether there's current life, ever was life before, or there was never life in the sample. I'll throw it over to you, Rifat.
Thanks, Vanessa. But hey, everyone, I'm Rifat. I am a 4th year mechanical student, and I'm currently the science mechanical lead at R3. And like Vanessa said, we basically have to create a module that can detect life from soil samples and from rocks. And as part of the mechanical team, I'm responsible for leading our team to design, build, and manufacture the science module. And yep, I'll throw it over to you, Leo.
Thanks so much, Rifat and Vanessa. So hi, I'm Leo Kim. I'm the science controls lead. So yeah, like Vanessa said, the science controls team does everything from the electrical components to hardware to software. So no matter what you want to do, we have projects relating to all 3 of those. So hope to see you on the team.
So I'm co-software lead. So the other software lead isn't here right now, but for control software, we do work with like controlling the rover, both like autonomously and manually, sending data to the rover, receiving data from the rover, and a lot of other interesting stuff.
All right, that was a quick introduction from everyone. We have a couple questions in the chat that I guess we'll go through first, and then we'll start heading through the Google form that we had some FAQs from there. The first question is, what was the most exciting experience at R3 in the last year? I might need a second to think about that. I don't know if you guys have anything you guys want to talk about or say.
Well, I definitely miss the machining shop. COVID sucks. I think we can all agree about that. But we did get some really fun testing days in, socially distanced outside. It was very cold. It was the middle of the winter. We were wearing snowsuits, but it was also really awesome. We had Navi climbing up snowbanks. We took it to the skate park. It was hard, but it was fun to like struggle through it together. So those were some really fun days this year.
Yeah, I would agree. I wasn't able to join as much for some of our filming last year or testing, just by virtue of location. But that was definitely the most exciting thing that we got to do, was just getting ready for competition, making sure everything's working the way we wanted it to work, and just having that experience to see that everything that we've been working on for like the last 2 years um, has been worth it. It's been working and it's going good, and that's always exciting to see.
Do you have any favorite memories, the rest of you?
I know some of you guys are a bit newer.
It's okay. If you don't, we can move to the next question.
I have one.
Sure.
Yeah.
The onboarding process for this year was really fun. I mean, last year was my first year on the team, and I definitely had no clue how to do anything that was going on. But all the leads on the team, they put together a really good training module, and it was really interesting to see everything that goes on. So hopefully it'll be just as enjoyable this year. And I kind of wish I could do it again, just because it was really challenging. It was really fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
Sorry if you guys just want to take the lead for a second. Apparently my audio is a bit low, so I'm just going to see if I can figure that out quickly. And you guys can handle stuff for a sec.
The next question is, will we all work together as one large group, or are we going to be split up into smaller teams? And the answer is smaller teams, because on our robotics team, we have about 150 people. That would be a very, very large team. Also, by splitting into smaller teams, we can focus on disparate projects, and we can also specialize. So we have teams specialized in what you want to work on and where your skill set is. We have multiple projects going on. So we have our Mars rover, but last year we did TSN hockey goalie. We have some special projects we're thinking of doing this year that are really exciting. And then within that, there's all the different specialties. Like you can see here, we have a mechanical lead, we have a controls lead, we have a software lead. I'm science, so we're all into our specialties. Does anyone else want to speak more to that?
I can add on a bit, I guess. With that being said, even though you might be working in smaller teams, and by the way, let me know if my mic is a little bit better. I just moved it closer to my mouth. It should be a bit clearer now. Even though you'll be working in smaller teams, you guys are still working towards one bigger, larger project altogether. So even though Neil is a software lead and Rifat is a mech lead, or we might have another mech lead, they're still going to be working together in the grand scheme of things, so that they can figure out where the issues might be and how everything works together, and making sure that that we end up getting to the place we want to be. And that's a big part of what I do as well, just making sure everyone's on track as well.
That's really true. We do a lot of cross-disciplinary work, and I think that's something you really get out of the robotics team that you don't get from your degree. You get to work with people who are specialists in different things than you, who are working on different things than you. Rifat and Leo have a planned meeting this week between their two different sub-teams, right? You guys want to talk a little bit about that? having occasional meetings together actually improves our work?
Yeah, definitely. So, as you guys know, I'm the mech lead for the science team, and Leo's the controls lead for the science team, and all of our work kind of goes hand in hand. So we have to design our stuff, and then Leo is in charge of making sure all of it's actually functional. So obviously, if he doesn't know what's going on in my team and I don't know what's going on in his team, it's not going to work together. So having these meetings where we can sort of discuss, see where everyone's at, maybe develop a procedure for how to do things is just really helpful. And it just adds to, learning more about the other team as well, and just making sure you're well versed in all these different topics. Leo, you can add on to that if you want.
Yeah, pretty much what Vanessa and Rifa said. We do kind of work a lot, and you can always reach out to like anyone that you want in the other teams as well. Like just because you're in the controls team or just because you're in the mech team doesn't mean that you can't like contact someone else or help for even things not related to our theory. I don't know, but yeah, like Vanessa said, we do have meetings, and we also have team meetings monthly for all the sub teams to come together and just discuss everything that's going on and set goals together as well. So it is very much like a big group as well, even though we work in smaller groups throughout the year.
Yeah, like what Leo was saying, even if we're specializing in whatever respective area we've chosen, everyone still needs to work together because, if you're coding for something, but it's not compatible with whatever hardware you're using, and the other way around, they use the wrong hardware, then, it's not going to work. So everyone always needs to know what other people are doing so that everything goes correctly.
I think we'll probably move on to the next question then. Someone asked, I noticed there are a lot of different teams, Mars Rover, RoboSub, and Circ Mars. How different are these teams and do they work together / communicate with each other? That's a really good question. And the answer is yes and no. It's a little bit of both. Obviously, when you're working on different projects, you're not working directly with other people who might be working on other projects, but the door is always still open for that communication, or if you have something you want to ask or figure out or anything like that, um, that's always an option, but you may not be working directly with someone, if that makes sense. I don't know. You guys, Neil, Refat, you guys have worked, I think, on some of the Circ stuff, how and other projects. How do you guys feel communication was between different projects and things like that?
I think some of the projects are a bit more related than others. So, for example, with Circ and URC, we're kind of still working on the same overall rover platform. So, in that sense, we do have a bit of overlap. But for other teams, like I think you listed the RoboSub or
TSN.
Yeah, so that's a really more of a separate thing, and there isn't really too much overlap. But I think for most of our teams, like especially now with science, we have, I guess, URC. There is a bit of overlap because obviously, mainly we're just working on our rover and just building around it.
For instance, we're going to use the same science setup for both Circ and URC, and it's actually a really great way to test it. So because Circ is kind of a less priority competition than URC, get to try it in competition conditions, give it a go, see how it works, find out what problems we have, and then we know more about it in a high stress environment for then using it in URC.
Yeah, definitely. There was another question here. What if we applied for multiple sub-teams but wanted to focus on one for the current year? So that's a really common question we get almost every year, and uh, it's something that we always discuss with all of our new recruits every year as well. Um, so our policy there has always been you're free to join and try and work with as many sub-teams as you're willing to or able to, but the reality of the situation is that you probably won't have the time to work on more than one seriously. And if you're not giving your full effort or the amount of effort that you would like to give, it can start to be a hindrance to your learning, your schooling, and even your activities on the team. So that's something I would say, take a chance to look at your schedule. If you're taking a full load or if you're taking a higher load, course load, maybe you try and think about which one you want to do more. And by all means, go to the introductory meetings or the live streams that we'll be having and to see what those teams will be out to see what you're interested in, especially if you don't have a lot of experience. And then you can kind of formulate your opinion on what you want to work on. And if in between years you want to move around, by all means, just let us know. We'll be happy to work with you on that. It happens all the time. I don't know if anyone else wants to give any input or advice on that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
You
well,
go
I
ahead.
didn't join multiple sub teams at the same time, but I initially joined hardware actually, and I didn't really find it much to my liking. So, yeah, like Danielle said, I just asked one of the leads if I could swap to software because I thought that that would be more interesting for me, and yeah, I swapped, and yeah, I've found software much more for me personally. Yeah. So I think like initially when you're still in like the onboarding phase, like yeah, it's a lot easier to swap around because you haven't really committed to anything yet. So, like Danielle said, you can just attend like all the introductory meetings, maybe try out like the initial like tasks or whatever and try to see what you want and then you can choose. Yeah. And then yeah.
And now Neil is one of our star software members. He's the lead, so he obviously flourished there. Also, if you want to do media and outreach or sponsorship and business, those teams have less commitment. So the technical teams take more time, and then less technical teams like sponsorship and business, where you work with industry partners, that can be a great way to meet people in the robotics industry, or media and outreach, where you can interview robotics professionals or do graphic design or video editing. Those teams are a little bit lighter. So if you want to pair those with a technical team, I've done that in the past, and those can be a good pair because you can talk about your technical knowledge from your technical team in your media and outreach, and it's kind of a creative outlet. So if you want a creative outlet or to do some business, those can go well together. But two technical teams at the same time is a lot.
Yeah, I've tried it myself on multiple occasions, and I've always just had to say like I can't do it anymore. Like, oh, I just have to choose one priority or the other. So definitely, if you have questions, feel free to reach out. We'll be more than happy to help you out with that. Another question here on the chat was, what aspects of the team, if any, will be held in person this upcoming semester?
Whatever we're allowed to. If they give us machining shop access, we'll be machining. So if you have machining experience, please let us know. Write that in your application because we're always looking for people who want to machine. We have to do testing and assembly in person, but there's definitely restrictions with COVID on how we can do that. But that physically cannot be done virtually. It's a physical thing. But yeah, what would you say, Daniel? As much as we're allowed to?
Yeah, really, it's going to be based on what the university lets us do and what the situation with COVID is, unfortunately, and that's been the case for the last 2 years now. Um, with that being said, for those of you who are interested in technical teams, that doesn't mean your stuff won't be made or developed or tested in any way. We're still going to do that. It just might be that to start off, you might not have as much of a hands-on approach as we would like, and that's something we're always looking for avenues to do. We're in constant communication with the university, constant communication with our affiliates in our various faculties to see what they will or will not allow and what we can do if we want to get on campus or anything like that. Um, so it's constantly in the works and it's going to be a work in progress. But as of right now, it will be mostly virtual, if not all virtual. And then as the school year progresses and as we get more information as COVID progresses, we should be transitioning more and more to a hands-on and in-person atmosphere.
We're hoping, it sounds like our competitions will be in person this year. So that's a really exciting thing that's upcoming. And also, if you have something like a 3D printer at home, not everyone does, but some people do. We do a lot of that on the team. So you can be involved in some of that kind of manufacturing. And we can also be creative. Like if you have a soldering kit at home and you're on the hardware team, there's opportunities for you to do stuff like that. We have to take it as we can.
Yeah, I don't know. Does anyone else want to add on to that? Or you think we got it covered? I guess we got it covered. If you want any more elaboration on anything, please let us know. We'll be more than happy to get into a bit more of the details. We're just trying to make sure we answer as many questions as we can within the hour that we've got here. So the next question on our chat would be, are all of the projects starting fresh this school year, or are there still projects in the process right now?
It's a mix.
Yeah.
If things are working well, we probably keep them, but there's lots of places to improve, lots of new things to build, and it's constantly evolving. We don't usually start the rover from scratch. Usually it's like we keep the things that are working well and we innovate on the things that can be improved.
Yeah, I definitely agree. For as long as I've been on the team, it's always been the case where uh, we're always looking to improve certain things, and we've got projects that maybe are more long term that we've got still going on. Sometimes we're working on new projects. There's always something going on, whether it's new, old, or just maybe something that we need to catch back up on. Um, Most of the projects you guys will be working on will probably be newer, fresher projects if you're just joining the team now. Um, yeah, but everything is kept in mind that it can be done within about a 1 year's time period for the most part, and you can see everything come from ideation to completion within that year span.
Also, most of the time, the first iteration is not the final iteration. So
Yeah, exactly.
within that year span, probably you'll have multiple iterations of that project.
100%.
How does that work with software, Neil? Like, how do you find, how much code do you guys do from scratch? How much is continuity?
Oh, I'm not too sure how to like talk about that. Yeah. Well, I think it just depends. Like, well, if it's not working, then we do it again or we change it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Kind of similar to mechanical.
yeah, I would say it's very similar that if you find something's not working, even on the software side, you kind of look into see what the issue is, see if you can just change the code or make quick adjustments or make new additions. Sometimes you do have to start from scratch, and that's the reality of the field of engineering or even STEM is that if something's just not working, sometimes you do have to go back to the drawing board and work on it that way. So that's always going to be the case where maybe you might have to start over, but that's never really a bad thing. It just means that you're taking the chance to see where something went wrong and grow from it, and learn from it and try and avoid that mistake or fix that mistake moving forward. And that applies to almost all of our teams, I would say.
Does anyone else want to add anything, or should we go on to the next question? All right, I think that's a go on. Shen asked, are you automatically accepted to the teams? How does that work? It depends on the team. Is there an interview? For science, there is an interview because that's a really small team. We have a lot of really knowledgeable people on the science team developing our life detection protocols. We have some PhD students, and we're working on really improving that this year. For media and outreach and sponsorship and business, the way you handle those teams is you learn on the team. So we do on-team training. So you join the team and you do right away, you do work that's applicable to the team. You jump right in and we train you as you go. You can ask us questions. For technical teams, we do our onboarding process. Do you guys want to speak a little bit to the technical team onboarding?
Yeah. So for the technical teams, we don't require any experience. When I initially joined, I didn't know anything. I'd never programmed before or anything like that. But so yeah, there's an onboarding process. We usually have like certain tasks that we give you, so that like everyone has like a certain baseline level of knowledge once you're done with the onboarding process. So we don't have to be worried. Oh, do you know this or do you know that or do you know that? And yeah.
Yeah,
Speak a bit more.
yeah, go for it.
Sorry, Daniel.
No, go for it.
Yeah, I just want to speak a bit more about our mechanical onboarding process, which we did the last 2 years. So we essentially did is we had some assignments for everyone that applied to the team. And I think there were 2 batches, right, Daniel?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we used Onshape and we basically had to CAD your ideas, your designs, and we would evaluate them. And based on that, we would select you to be on our teams. And we do always try to have as many people as possible. And we try to put you on sub teams based on your experience, how you already performed in the assessments, and so on and so forth. But yeah, sorry, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, no, you literally took the words right out of my mouth. I was literally going to talk about our on-shape onboarding process in like the last 2 years. The point there is that not everyone has access to SolidWorks, especially if you're in first year in your fall semester. So the idea is there just to get you guys comfortable with CAD software, so you kind of have a general idea of what's going on with everything, and then once you've completed those, you'll be on the mech team, and we'll get you set up with SolidWorks and everything that we need, and then we'll get you going with projects and everything. And we'll still obviously be there to answer any questions or confusions that you might be facing because it is new software. You haven't touched it before, but the general idea is you'll have a baseline knowledge, like Neil said, with the terminology, the understanding of how different tools may work. They might just have a different name, but you'll have that baseline understanding, and we don't have to walk you through everything from scratch. We've got that baseline going on.
And as long as you do the modules and you don't plagiarize, you join the team. We're not going to reject you, but we do need to see that you tried, that you attempted it, that you learned something from it. And it also helps us know where you're at with skill level. So if you're really advanced, we can put you on a harder problem. And if you're just starting out, then we'll give something that's not overwhelming.
Yeah, and that kind of carries over to the next question as well. What are the characteristics that we look for when choosing team members or members if we don't have experience? I don't know if you guys want to start. I could go on for hours.
We want to see that you're eager and that you're willing to learn.
Yeah, just those two. Like, if you don't really know anything, but you really want to learn, then especially with software, well, I think with all of it, but perhaps software most especially, is that, you know, you don't really need to take a course from school or anything. A lot of the stuff that, I do and whatnot can be learned by yourself. There's a lot of resources, YouTube tutorials, stuff like that. You can learn a lot of this stuff by yourself. Yeah.
I would add on, I would say the two biggest things are just interest and uh, just the willingness to learn, right? When I joined, I didn't know anything, and I just tried to insert myself in as many situations where I could learn something. And eventually, I ended up becoming a mechanical lead in the last year, and then now I'm the team captain alongside with Trevor, who's not here today. But really, that's the biggest thing. And I think if even if you asked members who graduated like 3, 4 years ago, um, and members who are new now within the last year, that the biggest thing is just willingness to work, willingness to learn, and asking questions in general of anything that you need. Um, those are really the biggest things. So looks like the next question, if no one else has anything else to add. No? Okay.
Leo,
Uh,
what do you look for when you're choosing people?
Yeah, I feel like you guys all kind of covered it.
Yeah.
I think the only thing to really add is like one thing that I really liked when I joined the team is everyone here, we have a common interest. Like at the end of the day, we're doing this because we enjoy it and we just want people who share that interest and want to work on these projects with us and have that like feeling of accomplishment together. So I think it's really like a team environment, and that's kind of what we look for. Like you don't need to be the best coder or the best designer. As long as you want to work with us like in this team, then that's all I would look for at least.
couldn't have said it better myself. The next question about atmosphere on the team. What is the atmosphere like leading up to a competition, and what are the competitions? You guys, what's the atmosphere like leading up to competition? Like,
It can be stressful, especially when things aren't working. It can be really exciting when you see the thing finally built that you've been working on building all year. That can be really gratifying. Usually something breaks or everything breaks, and that is a nightmare. We're working on being better at having backups of everything. What would you guys describe it as? What would you say, Daniel?
It's a roller coaster, to put it lightly. Like, not to say that in a bad way or anything, but there's always stress when you're getting ready for competition. You want to do well in everything, so you're a bit on edge of making sure all the systems that you worked on, or that all the systems that maybe you're working with, are all working properly and everything like that. And like Vanessa says, almost always something ends up going wrong, which is the unfortunate reality of the situation. But we'll always be working on it. It's a bit of a time crunch in some situations where maybe we've got to fix a problem within a day or two, and we'll maybe just do something really quick, or do something really fast, or maybe we have to go back to the drawing board on it. Depends on when that happens. Um, yeah, but other than that, it's just super exciting, super gratifying. I remember when I got to go to like my first couple competitions. Not everyone here has had the chance to, unfortunately, because of COVID. But I remember when I was getting ready, it was just pure excitement and like straight adrenaline pumping through my body, like getting ready to go on the plane to fly out to Utah or to Kentucky for Vex when we did that. And just knowing that like the work that I've put in over the last year or two, it's finally going to be somewhere, and then seeing how it does at competition as well is just so exciting, and it's just such a fun time overall. Yeah. Uh, Vanessa, do
The
you want
next
to? Yeah, go
question,
for
yeah. Sorry. The next question is, how many hours on average do you guys contribute to the team? Now, keep in mind, all five of us are not general members. We're all leads. So choosing to take on a leadership position engenders more hours. Uh, so I think like as a new member, as you guys joining in the first year, you'll probably spend minimum 3 hours a week on the team.
Yeah, I would
So
say
you'll
like
have a
2-ish,
1 hour
3 hours.
meeting. Yeah, 2 to 3 hours. So you have a 1 hour meeting, and then how much time it takes you to do your work for the week, whatever you're working on. So that's kind of up to you and your skill level and your enthusiasm. What would you guys say? Yeah,
I think
for new
about
members.
that. When I first joined, it was like about that much. Yeah.
And then we are the like workout horses of the team, but you don't have to be that. So that's only if you find you love it this year, and you work really hard and you want to be a lead. That ends up being more of a time commitment. How much hours do I spend a week? I spend probably about 5 hours on an average week, and then more on an intense week. What about you guys?
I think I'd say about the same. And especially like maybe a few weeks ago where I was sort of wrapping up one of the other teams and then starting a new science team. Definitely was a bit more hours than usual, but I would say on average, like, 4 to 5 hours per week is usually a good amount. And even back when I first started, I think, usually I think what Vanessa and Neil said about 3 hours, 4 hours, I think that's usually a good estimate for how much time I dedicated to the team at least.
There's some weeks where we're like testing. Those can be super long weeks. But again, this is all optional. So if you don't want to be part of the testing phase, or you're not included in that, then you don't have to work those crazy hours.
Yeah. Right now it's really hard to say for especially newer members because we're not doing as much stuff in person, so you've got to be a little bit more selective or restrictive on what goes on in person and things of that nature. But in general, as long as you're willing to apply yourself, there's always something to do. In general, you're looking at about 2 to 3 hours of time. Uh, for me, ever since Trevor and I became captains, I don't even know how to count the number of hours I've been spending doing stuff. In the last 2 weeks, all I can think is straight R3 in all of my off time. I might get like 3 to 4 hours, give or take, at the start or the end of the day where I'm not doing stuff. But uh, yeah, of course, that's not going to be the situation for you guys. But as you do spend more time, you might get more commitment, and you might have to spend a little bit more time, or you might have to do a little bit extra work here and there. But that's always optional. We're always going to ask you if you're willing to do that or not. So always know where your boundaries are, and make sure you keep those in mind, especially with school. Definitely like we're not here to take away from your education in any way. And that's something I'd really like to stress, and I think everyone else would agree with me, is that we're here to add on to your education. We're not here to take away from it. We're here to help you grow more with stuff that maybe you're not learning as much in class or you might not get as much exposure with early on in your education. And that's why we're here.
For me personally, like I get sick of theory, and getting the hands-on application to things I'm learning in class is so gratifying. So I love that about R3.
Yeah, I also
Sorry,
think
go
it's
ahead.
like a personal choice because maybe if you're the person who's not too concerned with your grades being like super high, then it's like a trade-off. Like it's like you could say like, oh, you know, I'm willing to take a little bit of a hit to my grades, but I can put a lot more time into this because I'm really interested. And like, that's a choice you can make. If you don't really want to risk your grades and like, you still want to keep them really high, then like you could commit less time. It's up to you how much work you want to take on yourself.
And you can keep your grades up at the same time. So I have a high average. I pay for school through scholarship, so I have to keep a high average. It's stressful, but it's doable. So just because you're on the robotics team, you can also do well in school if you work really hard. Just so you know, like I wasn't sure about it in first year. I was joining and I was worried about it, and it is doable. You can do it.
Yeah, I think it depends for everyone, but my grades skyrocketed when I joined the team. I think once I started doing more things that actually involve the things I was learning, maybe it depends on your learning style, but at least for me, like I really like putting in the hours, and I don't really think it's a hindrance at all. If anything, like my biggest recommendation for anyone going into first year would be try to find these opportunities to apply the things that you're learning, because it's an education that you won't get anywhere else, and it's good to get started early.
I 100% agree with that.
A lot of people are asking, when does onboarding start? How long is onboarding? Onboarding starts at the beginning of October. So you're going to be hearing from us at the beginning of October. That's when applications close, and we're going to try and get you onboarded as soon as we can. And it will take a month or two depending on your sub team. And we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, I will kind of expand on that a little bit as well. Um, Different onboarding processes for different teams will be at different paces. So you might hear back a little bit sooner from others, but it'll all be within around the month of September, towards the latter half of that, um, where we'll start wrap things up with applications and stuff. So if you're interested, make sure you apply at least during the month of September. After that, it's a lot harder to get you on board with us, just because then we start our whole training and everything like that to make sure everyone's up to par or up to speed with what we've got going on the team. So yeah, I know it's a bit of a wait for some people, but just hang in there. Keep an eye on our socials and everything, and we'll keep everything updated there. And we'll probably be sending out emails, letting everyone know what's going on in that situation.
I'd really recommend filling out the form that I put in the chat now. Like, just apply now. You can always decide not to do it later, but once you miss that application deadline, you might not be able to get on the team this year, and it opens up again at this time next year. So I'd really say just apply now, and you can always change your mind later. I think that's the best way. Also, if you want to get started and you're anxious and onboarding hasn't started yet, we have lots of tutorials on this YouTube channel. So if you look through, there's a section called Learn Robotics Skills. You can learn SolidWorks, you can learn mechanical design. We did a CSWA certification workshop this summer. You can see the TA sessions for that. You can learn Python. So lots of cool resources like that you can check out to get a head start.
And those resources will be continuously updated and added upon. So if you ever feel like you got time to do something, or there's a skill that you're wanting to learn, feel free to check us out. Or even if there's something you think that you would like us to handle, let us know, and we'll be more than happy to try and figure that out and set that up.
Yeah, give us requests for what you want to see. Also, if you subscribe, you'll see when we upload new tutorials, so you can subscribe here.
Kind of a repeat question, we'll go over it really quickly. If you're not sure which sub team to focus on, do you recommend starting the onboarding process for multiple sub teams to get a feel for what each offers? Yeah, I would say, and you guys can add in your answer as well. I would say that's probably the best way to go about it. If you're not really sure where you want to fit in or what your interests may be, by all means, apply for multiple teams, join the onboarding process, see what it's like. If you're not interested in one, you can always drop out of that one and continue with another one. Or if you end up finding out that, hey, these two work really well for me, or these are the two skills that I really want to learn, you can stick with those two. It's harder to do multiple stuff full time when you're on the team, just because it does take up more time and you've got classes and everything. So keep that in mind. But by all means, for the onboarding process, try out as many teams as you want. We recommend it actually, just so you know what you're getting yourself into.
And then whichever ones you complete and hand in, that's what you'll continue with. So keep that in mind.
There's a question here about communication and how we do that since we're not in person anymore. So a lot of that is online meetings, Zoom. We use Slack a whole bunch. Some of you may not be familiar with it. It's just a, how would you describe it? Like, not
Like
a
a
pro.
team member messaging platform. So you
Yeah,
have team channels, you have DMs where you message to organize work and stuff.
yeah. Sometimes there's emails here and there, but for most stuff within the team, we're using Slack. We've got a Discord and everything set up as well for cool hangouts, or if someone just wants to do work or anything, and that's always feel free to use to just hop in and out. I'm often on there. I'll probably be on there a whole bunch this upcoming year. You can ask others. Like I would just sit in calls for like 7, 8 hours while I'm doing my work, and people would hop in and hop out, ask questions, talk, chit chat. It's a good way to kind of get that atmosphere of um, cohesiveness and connectiveness, even though we're not on campus. All right.
Someone asks, how much more difficult is SolidWorks than Fusion 360?
I wouldn't say that either is any more difficult than the other. Um, it's really just you kind of use them for different things, or some maybe use more in industry than others. Um, if you've got experience with Fusion 360, transitioning over to SolidWorks shouldn't be nearly as hard as maybe for someone who's brand new, because you've used a whole bunch of the features and everything and the tools, and you'll have an idea of how different things interact when you're making parts. But you might not be familiar with the naming of features or how the tools are named or anything like that. And that might be where you find the most difficulty, as opposed to someone who's just coming in straight. They've got nothing to no previous bias to work off of. They're just looking at it fresh and they completely understand it as it is. But you should be fine. There's no problem with that. Um, I don't know if you guys want to add anything about Fusion 360 versus SolidWorks.
You have a leg up. Like you're already ahead of the game. If you've done Fusion 360, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started. I took a class before, and all of the modeling was in Fusion 360. Just like literally this month, I switched to SolidWorks, and the transition was honestly not difficult at all. The interface is extremely similar. I wouldn't worry about it. You definitely like it's not that bad. And like Vanessa said, you definitely have a foot up if you already have some experience.
Yeah, and I would say that goes for most 3D modeling softwares. That they're all pretty comparable to a certain degree. Obviously, there will be some differences in everything, but if you're familiar with one, you're fairly familiar with all the rest. So you're on a good track there. Um, to kind of answer on to the second part of your question, there is that do we use Fusion 360 on the team? The answer there is unfortunately no. We've had some people try to do stuff here and there, but it ends up conflicting with different files types and different file sizes and stuff like that. So we tend to stick more to SolidWorks. And if you don't have access to SolidWorks, that's not a problem. We'll be sorting that out with you once you're finished your onboarding process and everything like that. And we'll get you up to speed with SolidWorks there.
We're really grateful to SolidWorks. They're one of our sponsors,
Yeah.
and usually SolidWorks is so expensive that you're really lucky to get access to it on the team, and that's definitely one of the perks of being on the team. You get your own personal SolidWorks license. You can use it also for your school projects. It can be really useful. Tips to manage school in R3. Speaking of school, I
I'll
would
let you
say
guys go for
Google
that.
Calendar. I live and die by my Google Calendar. I cannot remember all my meetings. They're in the Google Calendar tells me what I'm supposed to be doing today. I put all of my due dates in there as soon as I get my syllabus at the beginning of semester. Reminders to do the projects like a week before. I don't know, what helps you balance everything?
So for me, I think tips for managing school and R3 is understanding your limitations. So, let's say you have some work to do today, and you can't just be like, oh, okay, I'll do that in an hour and I'll be done with that, and I'll do this for an hour and I'll complete that. And then, turns out it takes you 2 hours to do that and 3 hours to do the other thing. So, it's really important to understand, how long you take to do certain things and so that you can properly budget your time. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll kind of pipe in there as well. It really depends on your style as well, right? Vanessa's really organized and she does stuff on her Google Calendar and she keeps track of things that way. I am more unorganized than that, and I kind of just do things on the wing and by the fly of, oh, right, I remember I have this thing to do. I'll write down obviously really important things, or I'll make notes of like, oh, I've got to have this thing done by then, or whatever, I need to have this priority stuff done. But I always also keep like a mental map of what I know I've got coming up in the next day or two or within the week. And that works out decently enough well for me. I could obviously be better, and there's always ways to improve, but you're gonna know, and it's gonna take some time to figure out, especially if you're just coming into university, coming out of high school. Um, you're gonna figure out how long something might take you, and it might take a little bit, and that's not a problem. Um, with that being said, when you're on a team like R3, um, communication is really the big thing there. If you've got a project for classes coming up, or if you've got something that's making you not finish your work on time, um, for school, or you've got a doctor's appointment, what have you, by all means, just let the person who's leading your project or whoever you think is responsible for what you're doing know, right? Like, someone will come up to me and say, when I was a mech lead, oh, hey, look, our team's falling behind. They've got midterms uh, for the next couple of weeks. I don't think we're going to be able to meet that original deadline we set up. You think we can push it back a week or two, or what can we do to sort that out? Like, I'm not going to make these, I don't want to make these guys work 20 hours a day because I can't move a deadline and they've got school. And we're totally 100% understanding of that. And we'll always shift deadlines around to whatever works, or we'll cover for you, or we'll shift the load somewhere else, wherever it might be, or however we can manage it best. And we'll always work with you, no matter what level of the team you're on, whether you're a general member, a new member, an old returning member, an executive or not. We're always covering each other and helping each other out at every stage. And that's something that will help you do as well.
I think another important thing to add on is, especially for first year students, is to if you're not, at least for me, I didn't have very good study habits. So I think that's something, especially as a first year, that you should try to work on is find what works best for you when it comes to studying. So, for me personally, I found that I study best when I study straight for like 2 or 3 hours in a row, and then I take a long break compared to other people who prefer short breaks. So, try to nail down your study habits early so that you're not procrastinating for exams and stuff like that. And it really helps.
I will just add on to that. It took me years to figure out how I actually take to study. So if you don't figure it out straight away or within the first year, don't feel bad about it. It's hard to do. Some people figure it out in high school, some people don't. Sometimes you have to readjust for university. It's really up to you and you as a person. You'll figure out how that works and what doesn't work for you. I've had multiple people like message me on Discord from different university groups or unions and be like, "Oh, hey, how do you manage doing this, or how do you do this?" Just out of curiosity, and I'm always more than happy to answer those questions and help and even if you're on the team or not, always willing to help because I know it's a struggle, and a lot of us have had to deal with that struggle and manage our time really well.
The only thing that I'd add is just also keep in mind that just because it's like a design team doesn't mean it's so far like away from your studies either. Like when I first joined, I would bother like all the different members on my team and like the leads to help me out with like assignments or theory stuff for classes I didn't understand. So like so that connection is there. That's why I would recommend like you join. Like like even if you're not sure if you like will enjoy the designing part, you can make connections, you can meet new people, and at the end of the day, like everyone here, we've probably gone through a very similar struggle, and if not, we will definitely want to help out as well. So definitely reach out to everyone as well. Like it doesn't need to be strictly related to R3. It can be about school. It can be about anything.
Okay, I think we'll start moving on to some of the other questions that we've got. We've got about 10-ish minutes before I think you guys have your writing skills exam, so we don't want to take that away from you guys. The next question was, what was one of the theoretical concepts that you found hard to implement in a practical way? That's a really, really good question. I don't know about you guys. If you guys want to go first, I got to think about it for a sec.
There's some math stuff I've not used a lot. Like there's some weird things you do in like calculus that are useful, but you have to have like the right application. I don't know. What about you guys? Is there anything you guys learned in class and haven't really used?
Well, one thing we tried to do with the motor mount team in the past was to do vibration analysis, and
Yeah.
that's a bit tricky to implement, especially in, like just doing dynamic simulations and SolidWorks in general usually takes up a lot of horsepower, which we don't really readily have access to. So we tried to use MATLAB, and that also adds an extra layer of complications. So I would say just doing more advanced simulations or more theoretical simulations is usually a bit of a challenge. It usually requires a bit more knowledge and just a better understanding of what's going on. But yeah, I think that's probably the main thing that just pops to mind at the moment.
Yeah, kind of to piggyback off of that as well. Just not necessarily that all simulations are really hard to do. Some you might not see you might not see the direct application of some stuff or things directly, but once you like get into the third year, so stuff for like calculus and everything like that, those are building the base math functions and stuff that you'll end up using in your third and fourth year courses, and you'll see the applications for those just pop up out of nowhere, and you'll be like, oh, that's why I use that Laplace transform for this, or that's where this one really small caveat comes into place, and then applying those skills is really useful. Another thing that I saw in the chat, kind of related to this question, was inverse kinematics, and that's more on like the electrical control side. We dabble into that a little bit for mechanical. If you are more into the robotics stuff in fourth year, that's a really hard thing to implement. The math behind it and everything, we tend to be able to figure out. It's not super, super hard, but implementing that is a nightmare. And we've been trying to implement it for years. So that's something that we're always looking at. Neil, Leo, do you guys have anything?
Not really.
Okay. Guess we'll go to the next. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I have not taken really that many like insanely difficult classes, but we'll see like what you guys all said about what Vanessa said. I think finding applications for like the math theory part is pretty difficult, but there are definitely connections between classes. Like a lot of my classes made a lot more sense after I joined the team.
I definitely agree with that. Like going into circuits makes a lot more sense when you know about the hardware on the robots. Going into Mech 222, mechanical design, that was so easy because I'd already done it on the robotics team. I went in the first day, they're like, make this part. Everybody is overwhelmed because it's the first time using SolidWorks, and you're like, I've been doing this on the robotics team. I got this. So things like that, if you're on robotics team, also like materials make a little bit more sense when you've chosen materials for your parts, or manufacturing in second year. It's totally related to the robotics team. that makes way more sense when you've actually designed for manufacturing before. So some classes are really similar.
Yeah, you'll see variation depending on your classes, and throughout the years you'll see more application. We'll try to speed through a couple more questions just because we're getting a bit of an influx in the last couple of minutes.
All right, rapid fire time. Let's
Yeah.
be quick.
Does First Robotics count as previous experience? 100%.
Yes, we have
Anything
a
you've done.
partnership with them. They
Yeah.
are awesome. That's great.
What are some tasks in the life detection team and what skills would be useful to learn for them?
This is very related to chemistry, biology, and geology. So if you love rocks, if you love learning about chemistry, if you like researching protocols, there's a lot of reading scientific papers and choosing instruments, then this is the team for you.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I can't spell SolidWorks properly. Oh, that's right. Oh no, I put an extra O in there. Oh well. Um, Question: How do we exchange materials if we're working on a team remotely? There's a whole bunch of different software that we use. For the mechanical team, we'll use GrabCAD, which is based on GitHub, and for our controls guys, software, hardware, a lot of the stuff we do is on GitHub or on Google Drive, things like that. Media and business and sponsorship, I think you guys mostly use Google Drive for your stuff, but there's a lot of ways that you can share materials and things like that.
We'll still use Canva for graphic design. So we have a team account. We also use Adobe products. So whatever you like to use, you can use.
Do you use ANSYS for the Sims? Is ANSYS an add-on to SolidWorks, or is that a totally different software? I feel like it's a different software, right?
Yeah, it's a different software, but I think from my experience so far, we usually just stick to SolidWorks. I think it does everything we need it to do. But yeah, that's pretty much my answer.
Yeah, we haven't yet, but if you are an expert in ANSYS and want to give it a go, you can, but not so far.
Yeah, we're always open to looking at new softwares and everything like that if we feel the need to, or if you think it'd be useful for us. By all means, let us know. We'll look into it, see what we can do. Sometimes it's not attainable for us, so then it's out of the question, but we're always willing to look and see what we can do to always help the team. How many people do we have that register for the team in a year or so? We get hundreds of applicants every year. Some years it's more than others, but hundreds. Like there's a lot of you guys, and there's a lot of us already too. So um, it doesn't mean that we have a restriction on who can or can't join. Like we said earlier, it's really just about willing to put in the effort, the time, and willing to learn, and just being interested in what we do.
The
And
more
those are really big things.
hardworking, like talented people we get, the more cool projects we can do.
Yeah.
We're Ryerson Engineering's largest design team, and with that, it's a bit sprawling, but on the same coin, we can do really cool things because we have so many passionate people.
And there was one last question, which I kind of answered in the chat, but because I can't spell, there's a typo in there. What CAD software do we use? We use SolidWorks for pretty much everything. Yeah, from design to analysis to simulations, all of that and the above.
If that's it for questions, maybe we should wrap it up so they get back, if they're in first year, to their writing
Yeah.
skills.
For those of you guys in first year, make sure you're ready to go for your writing skills test. Make sure you get that down pat.
It's
You guys should be
easy,
good.
don't stress.
Yeah,
You got
don't worry about it too much.
Yeah, if you can speak English fluently, then you're completely fine. I was worried for nothing when I took it.
You should
Same
have started
here.
writing quickly though. Like you
Yeah.
don't have that much time. It's a lot shorter than you would expect. So just like submit your draft, honestly.
It's not hard though. You guys got this. You just write. All right. Well, it was nice answering all your questions. We look forward to seeing your applications and having you on the team, hopefully.
Yeah. It was nice seeing you all. I
Yeah,
think
thanks for stopping by.
Yeah. Bye. I will be ending the stream then in just a sec. Have a good one and good luck.